Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Paranormal Zone. I'm your co-host, Tom Spitalere. So the Paranormal Zone is set up so we can discuss all aspects of the paranormal, UFO, cryptozoology, and whatever goes bump into the night. We also respect everybody's beliefs, so that's what makes this show very unique. We listen to what everybody has to say because everybody has a different view on the paranormal. You put 10 paranormal people in the room together, you'll get 10 different answers. That's the same question. Same with cryptozoology, same with demonology, and same with ufology, too. You put 10 UFO people in the room, ask them the same question, you get 10 separate answers. So today's guest, though, is a very special guest, and we've had him on before on this show. We've had him on my other show in Haverhill before, Father Bob Bailey. Father, welcome to the Paranormal Zone.
Thank you very much. It's good to be back here.
Yes, it is. And he's with the Holy Sword Apostolate, and he deals in spiritual warfare, which we're going to get deep into because that's real interesting. Welcome, Father. How's the weather down in Rhode Island?
Oh, today is amazing. After the last couple of days of cold, it's in the high 60s.
Wow.
And no snow. And no snow.
Oh, that's unique.
We had some snow around here the other day. That's why I asked you.
Oh, did you really?
Yeah. Yeah, we had some snow Saturday morning. When I woke up, we had to clean the car off. Yeah, it was quite the morning. But It is what it is. So, Father, welcome to the show. And why don't you explain to our listeners around the world what you do and what Holy Sword Apostolate is?
Sure. What I do is kind of multifaceted. The apostolate deals in different areas of spiritual warfare, but also of healing. There's a component of healing where some people have come up and asked for prayers. They're ill, or have some other kind of emotional problems and might need just peace of mind, and I pray over them for that. But also, the Holy Sword began as for education, and also to help people that have various problems of a negative type with hauntings or with feeling attacked by something evil, nefarious, something demonic. And so we try through education. We have a website, and then also by trying to give. We haven't really done a lot of workshops yet. I did that many years ago, and then try to respond. We have a network now growing. I have another priest on the West Coast now. I'm a Roman Catholic priest on the East Coast. My friend Father Ken Torres is a Eastern Orthodox priest on the West Coast in California. So together we cover both coasts, and we work together. And we have a clergy network that is comprised of different clergy that, if, say, we can't get help or we can't go out to a certain place because of distance, that we're trying to build up a repertoire of clergy that we trust to be able to call upon, but also other professionals, such as we have people that do intake on cases, assessors. We're trying to get some people with background in psychology to help also. We have those who are gifted people who have gifts of discernment and gifts of, clairvoyance and all that to help in case of that. So it's multifaceted and exciting because it's been growing. It's really been blossoming. So we'll see where it goes from here.
Well, that's good to hear that it is growing.
Yeah.
Especially in the world we're in right now with all the stuff going on negative energies, parasitic energies, some people call them.
Yeah.
Some people call them demons.
Yeah.
They all have different names for these things. And, even if it's not demonic, you can have a negative spirit or an unhappy spirit that could cause people a lot of problems. I mean,
Oh, yeah.
doesn't have to be a demon.
Right.
It just has to be someone that doesn't believe in a house.
Right.
We have all these different ways of living now and different understandings of the rules of life. In the 16, 17, and 1800s, we weren't living some of those lifestyles. Some of those would get you hung and killed. Today, it's accepted. At least theoretically, it should be. It's accepted. There are still some people that don't accept everything, which is that's the way the world turns. But I mean, you have a spirit that lived in the 1800s, and you have something today that they don't believe in. They could cause a whole lot of problems for those people living in that house.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
And even could be something as simple as rearranging the house.
Yeah.
Or making repairs.
Right.
So, Father, as you increase this network from East Coast to West Coast and everything in between, do you find that this negative energy or this requirement for the healing and the education process has increased in the last 5 years?
I think it has. I think it has because I think we live in a world now where we have a lot of people dabbling in things that they really shouldn't be, and not knowing what they're doing, and then inadvertently opening doors, spiritual portals, and things are coming through that are not intended. And so so people are experimenting with that because everything's on the internet now, and
right.
That I think there's an increase with that, and it could be all different things, whether it be hauntings or negative attachments, things like that.
And I wonder if technology has opened this up to younger people today than what we had 15 or 20 years ago.
It could be.
Because 20 years ago we didn't have a lot of this technology. Right.
Right.
Yeah, the youth today has access to this where going back 25 years ago, none of us had access to it. So that'd be interesting to see if technologies move that ball faster down the field.
Yeah.
Right.
The educated guess would say yeah, only because so much more you're able to get that before you may have had to go to a library or known somebody who knows something on the issue. Now it's all out there.
Yeah, I mean,
Right.
you see it on the internet. People go, I got a demon in my house. And then you go, there's plenty of paranormal sites out there on Facebook. And you go, okay, click on this. Let's see what they got for a demonic entity in their house. And you read it going, I hate to break that news to you. I don't know where you got that information from, but it's not demonic. It might be PO'd, but it's not demonic.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
And there's also other things there, which is why we like to have assessors, because some things can be explained, whereas people might think it's a spiritual problem, but it might be something, especially if it's a house, it could be something where you need to update your appliances because they're, emitting these things that are negatively affecting you,
Right.
or it could be trauma that you're actually going through, so you need a different type of help for that.
Yeah, especially appliances, because today with everything so pricey, people are holding on to microwaves and everything else. And when we go into homes, the first thing we check is what the magnetic fields are in the house. And some of these appliances are letting off, I mean, 0.00 to 0.05 is pretty safe. But, when you start getting into reading 7.7, 7.8, we did a house many years ago that gave us 199.9 on the I had to go get a digital EMF. That's how high it was.
Wow.
I mean, that at that level, you got not just fear. You don't just see shadow figures. Now you're dealing with, if you're living in that constantly, you could get cancer. There are now other severe. Yeah. You've really stepped up the board on that one. So, I mean, it's smart to check these out. Now, Father, out of all the calls you get, okay, and I know you go through a lot of these, you have your people out there double checking, triple checking, and doing pre-investigations before you go out there. But how many of them end up parasitic, demonic, or you're going into spiritual warfare?
Probably a little less than half, I would say. Yeah, because of different reasons. The people, for not doing it out of fault, but they just don't understand other things. Like for instance, like the EMF things from appliances. They don't, they never heard of that, so they're feeling being watched and getting a little paranoia and all that. And of course, if you don't know what's going on, then it's going to look like that, that there's something spiritual going on, or it could be a trauma that caused some psychological issues, and those psychological issues aren't being tended to, so they play out that almost could feel paranormal, so I mean, the nice thing is that a lot of them can be explained. The difficult thing is not everybody wants to accept that, that answer.
Right.
It's easier to believe in the paranormal than to want to get help for issues,
Now,
kind of help.
Now, I know you've been on some shows before, and we're not here to bash shows. I'm not here to do that, okay? I mean, I do bash a couple here and there, but for the most part, I have my reasons for, okay? But we're not here to bash any shows tonight. What were some of the shows you were on, first of all, so our listeners know?
Not many. I mean, I was on Paranormal State for 3 seasons, again, just dealing with the dark things. If there was negative or what they thought was possibly demonic, they would call me. And I was also on The Haunted. And what The Haunted does is take some cases, paranormal cases, and then do almost like a documentary on that. So they took 2 of my cases for that. And then recently I did one, Expedition X, on the Discovery Plus. It hasn't come out yet.
Oh, they haven't released it yet? I'm looking forward to that one.
Yeah, no, they'll let me know, but maybe in the fall.
Oh, nice. So this was a very recent footage then. Very recent.
It was.
All right. So my question to you then, Father, is I know back in the early 80s, that's as far back as I can remember, okay? 84 years old gets tough after a while remembering things. As you both know, I'm not 84. You had Unsolved Mysteries, and that was murder, mysteries, escapes, Bigfoot, bird, that covered the gamut. But that's all you really had on. Now today we have what I call the Paranormal Channel, called the History Channel.
Oh, yeah.
The Travel Channel, sorry. And all they run is paranormal all day long, 7 days a week. Instead of Unsolved Mysteries, 1 episode a week or 2 episodes a week, and that was it. You'd think, personally, and we're not bashing shows here, but you think with all the added coverage of TV shows that people are misinterpreting what's going on in their house because they watch and I don't care what show it is. They're all good shows for the most part. There's a couple I don't like when they get into like killing Bigfoot. That thing I don't have any respect for. But that's my own thing. But do you think these shows have brought a different awareness, and people don't really understand what they're watching on TV, and they see it in their own house, and then they call you up and say, "I got a demon"?
Yeah, I think there's definitely some of that. I think also that some of the shows do not give a good representation of what should happen either. And again, the good and the bad part is that some shows have raised awareness so that people who have legitimate problems don't feel alone, and can maybe have the strength to talk about it. However, because they're doing a show, which usually lasts an hour, that's usually a conglomeration of weeks or days of investigation and all of that, but they have to wrap it because it's wrap it into a 1-hour show. So it gives a wrong impression that everything can be neatly wrapped up and done and solved within less than an hour.
Right.
And so I think that does a disservice. But again, it's nothing they can do. I mean, a show's usually an hour or half an hour. So.
Right. My favorite is when the client will call me back the day. I'll call the client the next morning, right? And most of them are very respectable and know we do this, as a volunteer thing, and I do other things, and my team members do other things, and they call me back. So I had this one client call. I called the next day. Good. So by the end of today or tomorrow, you should have all the evidence gone through, right? We're at your house for 4 hours last night. We ran 5 cameras, four videos, and
and you have a life.
and we took about 200 photographs. Let me think about that one. On TV, they get it all wrapped up in 10 minutes. Yes, because they have a production crew going through everything. Have you ever had that happen to you?
Yeah. I think, again, people have the wrong, they get a wrong impression. And even when I'm doing spiritual warfare, it doesn't always wrap up in a one-shot deal. Sometimes I have to return to a place. And it doesn't, it's ongoing like a battle. Sometimes you have more than one skirmish,
right,
before the end of the war. So, that, and the other thing that's kind of frustrating is that people want you in, but they want you to be a magician. They want you to go in there, fix it, get out, and then they can live their life whatever way they want to. And it's just not reality because, just take, for instance, you have a medical field, you get a checkup and you find there's something wrong with your health. Well, at that point, you got to do what's right, the kind of therapy, the kind of meds. You can't live your life exactly the way it was before you were diagnosed.
No.
And that's hard to people because they want us to be magicians.
Right. Exactly. And I just find it, I find it interesting because these shows have made it that in an hour they solve the problem. And we know for fact that, some of these movies are movies and they embellish facts. And then we also know that, everything that happened in the movie The Conjuring, if you go back and listen to, you got the same friend as I do, Mr. Carl Johnson and his brother Keith Johnson, they'll tell you half that stuff in the movie took place over years, and they make it look like it happened like ba-boom, 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 and all of a sudden the heroes show up, they fly in like Tarzan, and they fix the problem. Well, the Conjuring house still had problems long after Tarzan left.
Right.
So, and
also, a lot of times when they're recreated into movies, Hollywood's involved,
Yes.
And what I find frustrated is that truth is scarier than fiction. Why they have to embellish it, adding other things when the truth is scary enough? It blows my mind.
Exactly. The Conjuring House comes to my mind, and the most haunted house in America down in Connecticut. They're coming out with a new movie on that one soon. I know that because one of my...
Oh, the Smurl House?
Is it the Snow House?
Smurl.
Smurl House. Yeah, it's in Bridgeport. Bridgeport.
Yeah.
I mean, that was scary enough from talking to Paulino all those years ago. God rest Paul's soul. Paul was down there. He was one of the first investigators down there with Ed and Lorraine Warren.
You know, I think too that when we're talking about the shows on TV and especially movies, that our listeners have to understand a lot of that is for entertainment. It's not education. I had the pleasure of being on I'm not going to mention the network, it's not fair to them, but we were doing a house that we knew was very haunted, and to the father's point, at one of the particular shots took about 2.5 to 3 hours, and we repeated the same exercise maybe 6 or 7 times, trying to get it right for the camera. So there was something there, but the crew itself and the production company just couldn't understand that what we're dealing here is not with circus animals that train to do something when we ask on command. It frustrated me. We had another opportunity to go out to California, myself and a medium, and shoot a pilot. And again, it doesn't matter which studio, but they wanted to script what the medium had to say. Well, that defeats the purpose. And God love the medium, said, I'm not going to script this. It either comes naturally to me and I repeat what I'm hearing, or we don't do the show. And ultimately, we never did the show. But I'm sure, Father, that you see the same thing. Reality and TV is two different things today.
Right. Yeah, it very much can be.
All right.
Yeah, and even how people are affected by what we see. You know, we've all been in the paranormal field for quite a number of years. I've got over 20 plus years in it. And to your point, when I used to interview prior to going out to a home, I could always tell if they were big watchers of paranormal shows on TV, because they would almost repeat verbatim what they heard on the last show. And that was always a red flag to me to say, we may just have somebody that's interested in us coming out. And I found basically what you just said. I think about 40 to 50% of what we investigated turned out to be unexplainable, and the other 40%, 50% turned out to be, listen, we can explain this. So I think TV shows leave people with the impression every time something happens, it's an automatic haunting.
Yes, yeah, it does. Well, and that's why it's the show, So they choose carefully, but it's not the case. It's not reality all the time.
All right. So Father, now we got the irreality of the TV out there, the unreality. So you get a phone call, okay, either from another priest, another team. It doesn't matter. Even if I sent you one, I call you up, and say, hey, we got this case in such and such a state. This is what's going on. This is what she's going through. We've done the psychological evaluation. She seems all right, or he seems all right. It doesn't matter who we're dealing with here, he or she. And now it's time for you to go out there. So what would be the first steps you would take, obviously, besides going to the house? So walk us through how you would investigate this, if you don't mind, sir.
Sure. In the beginning, well, again, it depends on the problem, how they get in touch with us. But usually, and it's funny, I just got dinged as we're talking with someone who's got a problem. What what we would do now within our network is we would give it to an assessor who's pretty versed on asking the right questions and trying to get a feel for what type of issue this is. Are there any red flags? Are there, is there any explainable parts of that? And to see how serious the problem is. Although, as you know, everything is like serious, and they want you there a week ago. We would have someone do the intake, because that's very important to get a feel from the questions as to what's going on. And then after that, we would be in touch with them, depending on what we feel the nature of their problem is. And then the very last thing, I mean, if we can help them through it, and that's, without going there, then we will. Or if we're not able to go, hopefully it's slow, but we're trying to build a repertoire in different areas of the country. Rome wasn't built in a day, but, to try and get someone to investigate it physically. Mm-hmm. And then at that point, if we assess it to be a true spiritual issue, paranormal or spiritual warfare issue, then we would go out and try to help the best we can.
So, Father, do you use mediums in your network?
Yes and no. We use what we call gifted people that have a sense of what's going on. Right. Yeah, I mean, in that. And I consider, I don't like using the word psychic medium. There are people who have spiritual gifts, and right. And if, and I have friends who are gifted, but I consider that a gift of the Holy Spirit, not for selling the future and fortunes and all that stuff. But right. Yeah, there are times that we do have those people on hand, and sometimes they help. They're able to get an impression by talking to the people.
Right. It's interesting.
So when you get to the house, right, you're talking to the client and things start getting bad in there, what do you start? Say you're on the case. You're there. It's local. Mm-hmm. You're there. Right. Things are starting to heat up. You got your group with you. They've checked the EMF. They've checked all this stuff. Everything looks pretty normal. Well, there may be a spike or two here or there, but that's about it. So when you get to the case now, what is your job to handle?
Well, basically, I do depending on how extensive was an investigation. Mm-hmm. Then I would just, if we really have the suspicion it is a demonic case, then I would just go in there and do prayers and cleansing prayers, warfare prayers to try and counter the spirit and command it to leave. And then after doing the prayers that I kind of put together, then we go into each room and we do what they call holy fumigation, which is blessed incense. We use holy water in the rooms. We also, ask the Lord to close any doorways that have been open through whichever way. And then at the very end, I give them 4 blessed metals and ask them to bury it on the 4 corners of the property, and sometimes with blessed salt, just to create a hedge of protection around the house so that the evil doesn't come back again. And then once that's done, then we sit down with the clients and discuss a battle plan, because after that, then they have to see to it that these things don't happen again, that these things aren't invited in again. And that is as different as, the clients themselves. But they definitely have to do some maintenance work, spiritual maintenance work. And that might be that, they need to practice their faith again. They need to pray. they need to get certain things out of their house or out of their life. Whatever it is, we're kind of like spiritual doctors. After assessing the illness, what is the best prescription to maintaining good health after that's happened? Because once you've been touched by evil legitimately, your life changes a little bit. I mean, we can get the things out of a house or pray for healing over a person, but they have to maintain a spiritual life themselves and have their faith be their shield.
Oh, very, very interesting.
Yeah, that is interesting. Do you think, Father, that a lot of this, the evil we're seeing today and possession and so forth, is because across the board people are, how do I say this, not as religious today as they were 30 years ago, let's say. So when you leave any faith, it doesn't matter which one it is, you open yourself up to evil, possibly possession, don't you?
Well, I think in that people have a less, in other words, faith is not a component in their lives. It's not part of their life. So that when something might happen, a lot of times there's issues that have been on the property before, or that they have let in through trauma, and inadvertently has come in through trauma or conjuring themselves by dabbling in things. They don't have the wherewithal like they did many years ago, where people were brought up with some faith in the house to be able to combat it. So in that way, they don't have the tools. Whereas before, people had tools, spiritual tools, to help them. And so we try to respond by suggesting the tools in accordance with whatever tradition that they are, that they are using, or that they're comfortable with,
Right.
So if they're Catholic, I tell them get back to Mass and the sacraments. If they're Protestant, go to church, read the Bible, just be positive. If you're Jewish, practice your Jewish faith. I just got a call from someone who was Muslim and asked they needed help. And so I said, well, are you a practicing Muslim? They said, yes. I said, well, then I suggest that you check your imam or your holy leader and see. I know they have a thing called the jinns, which is their form of demons, and then see what's part of your Jewish culture and religion to help you. Because if you're doing Christian things and you have no belief in Christ, it's not really going to...
No, it's not going to help you at all. It's not. You got to find that happy medium.
Right.
Yeah, I believe that. And I believe that in my faith at least, I believe you have to carry Jesus in your heart. And it is a protective device to keep evil away. I don't know that any of us are ever going to really understand what Satan and evil is about, or how it creeps in or doesn't. But I think we inherently should understand how to protect ourselves against that. And I think it's religion, regardless of what religion you follow. I think you have to turn to religion and believe in religion. I think some people turn to religion, but they don't believe in it. I think you have to believe in Jesus and God as our Savior. And once you do that, I think you do defend yourself better against evil than if you don't. Because I think evil presents itself in a lot of dimensions other than just the paranormal. I think when we look at hardcore criminals, I think evil has crept into their lives. So I think it goes beyond the paranormal.
Yes. And again, there was a continuum in society, your society, your family, your church or synagogue, and the culture, everything seemed to at least have a current, that supported one another. But then now we seem to live in a void where people don't have that, dimension. As people say to me, and I never understand, I'm not religious, I'm spiritual. That's a bunch of nonsense. I mean, what semantic game are you playing? Spiritual.
Right.
Well, if you're spiritual, you have to have some kind of a practice of something.
Sure.
In order to do that. You can't just say, oh, I believe, but you don't practice or put it into practice in your life,
Right. Exactly.
Yeah, well, anything you do, even when we go into houses, we'll cleanse out a house, right, Father? And if I'm in a house where they're Jewish, holy water or atheist, holy water is not going to work. It's just like it'd be just like getting sink water and throwing it around. I mean, it's not going to work. And you might use sage. Sage might work a little better. You don't know. It's what the people. And if you got a Native American person or someone who believes in the earlier religions, then sage may work better than holy water if they believe in it. It's all about their belief.
It all depends on what the nature of the thing is. Like, people who are Native American would tell you that sage was not used for spiritual warfare.
Correct.
It's used to create something positive, kind of a cleansing thing. So it would be someone. I've worked with people who've had Native American influences on their property, and that's a component of it, or they are part Native American. So, I would work with a shaman. I would go in and do the warfare part, and then the shaman would help them in their their Native American cultural thing to do some positive things like that. So it all is like working together and knowing what. But yes, faith is the component. If you're just wearing a cross around your neck because it's a fashion statement, that's not going to do a thing. But if that cross represents your faith, it's a weapon. It's a
Correct.
Weapon.
Yeah. Very well put.
I had someone who had a rosary, was carrying a rosary in their paranormal group, and I said, "Oh, okay. Well, that rosary is more than just a thing to show." I said, "It's not going to do anything. It's what makes that a weapon. What makes that powerful is the prayer behind it, and what is powerful about my rosary when I use it is that I pray the rosary every day. So that symbolizes my prayer, and that makes that now into a spiritual weapon against evil. Other than that, it's just a piece of jewelry, or it's not as effectual."
No, you're right about that.
I think the same thing can be said about the Bible. Lots of people have the Bible in their home. Lots of people carry a Bible, but how many people that do that have actually read it? The real message is not in the book. The message is inside the book.
Well, I always found I always found something interesting about the Bible. Okay, I go on vacation once in a while. Okay. You go on vacation. It doesn't matter where you go. North Conway, Boston, Providence. I don't care where you go. You go rent a hotel room for the night or a couple days or a week. It doesn't matter. And then you open up the drawer of the hotel, because I used to work in a hotel. They had a Bible in every room.
Right.
Yeah.
How many people do you even think would look at that stay at a hotel room because they're vacationing with the kids for a week? I don't understand that at all. But they have a Bible in each room.
Well, not anymore.
They got rid of that. Okay.
Yeah, they did.
I think for the most part. That was the Gideon Society, and they donated them.
Oh, okay.
But for some people, it's really been a source of strength because they're going through whatever. They open the drawer, they see a Bible, and maybe they'll start to read it and get some comfort. But yeah, that's what that came from.
Oh, they're not doing as much anymore.
Yeah, I just stayed at a hotel a couple of weeks ago, and there were no Bibles in the rooms. And I asked the desk clerk about it, and they said that they've done away with that practice.
Yeah. Everything's politically correct. Which
to me is a moot point because, again, you can have a Bible in the room. If you don't read the Bible, it's not a tool of any kind.
No, it's a book.
Right.
Not enough people read the Bible. I think it's sad that they don't, because it's probably, again, Father, the greatest story that's ever been told. It has everything in there, mysteries and everything else. So, but it's sad that lots of people have gotten away from the Bible, which I think can be another tool. As you said, I think wearing a cross, I carry rosaries with me all the time, and I have for 40 or 50 years. But I do the rosary, so I don't just carry it.
Right. And that's where the power comes from, because you unleash the power of the rosary by your prayer,
Right.
And then it becomes a threat to the other side.
Correct. That's correct. And it also brings religion, again, regardless of what religion you follow, it brings religion into your heart, which shows evil, another tool against evil coming in. I mean, what happens to prisoners most of the time after being incarcerated for 5 to 10 years? They turn to religion. And that's really what turns their life around inside. It isn't the jailers. It isn't the food they feed them or anything else. It's that they realize, because they have so much time on their hands, that once they get into the Bible, they see the real message. And I do believe most of them turn their lives around while they're inside. Unfortunately, most of them are inside so long, they never get to practice outside.
Right. Yeah, you hear things like that all the time. People have come in there and they've either met the chaplain or they've been introduced to these things, and they have the time to consider their lives, and they realize something's missing, and they have remorse about what they do, and they turn their lives around, and some of them become great evangelists in sharing the faith with others.
Right, exactly. Well, Father, I have a question for you. I think your network sounds so interesting to me because I think this is what's been missing for a long time in the paranormal world. I think investigators are wonderful, and we all go out and try to do the best we can, but I think some of us fall short when it comes to correcting or protecting moving forward. If what we usually do on the Paranormal Zone, Father, is that we don't really give out your personal information, and that's to protect you from phone calls and, emails that you can't stay up with. So if it's okay with you, what we'd like to do is have our listeners email me and let me look at them, and then, if you don't mind, I will forward on ones to you.
Okay.
Sure. If you don't mind doing that. Now, if you want to give out your own information, that's okay with us. That works too.
I mean, I could give you the network and the website, which has a lot of information, and we're continuing to add to it. But it has a lot of good information for people, to be educated, and it's www.holyswordapostolate.com.
Okay. And they can go to that website, and can they post on that website?
No, it's not. We haven't got to that point yet where we have someone. They can write in. I'm hoping my friend who helps add things on the website has posted that we do have an email address, and now we have someone who's volunteered to as part of us to monitor the emails. So that when people would call with that, and I believe it's Holy Sword Apostolate or Holy Sword at. It's so brand new. We just got it. It's at Gmail. I know that. But if they go on to the website, hopefully it's on there by then. If they have any questions.
Okay. Well, you can always contact Tom and myself as you move forward. If we can do anything to support your efforts, please let us know here in New England. I happen to have lived in Rhode Island for 10 years, so I love Little Rhodey.
Where did you live?
I lived up in Cumberland.
Oh, Cumberland, no? Near the old monastery.
Yes, I had a very good friend up there. I'm trying to think of his name because it was 30 years ago I lived there. He was the parish priest just a wonderful, wonderful man. I just loved the whole time I was in Rhode Island, to be honest with you. And I had an office downtown in East Providence.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so
nice.
Wonderful state. Just a wonderful state it is.
Yeah, it's the most.
New England is a really great place. So much history.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. Just and being that close to the ocean, and it's just wonderful. I had a great life for the 10 or 12 years I lived there with my family.
That's great.
But again, you can contact Tom and I for anything you need from us, Father. We're more than happy to help out any way we can. And I know you have Tom's information. Oh, listen, we think the work you do is just wonderful.
Yeah, it's not easy. It's not easy work, Father. Anything you do in this field, to do it right, takes time.
Right.
And usually, so say you go to a house and you have to, now you realize you have to declare war on this entity, whether you want to call it a demon, a parasitic entity, whatever you want to call it, Father. How long does it normally take? Because it's not what you see on TV. I just want our people to know that.
No, there's no normal take. It can be many vary as the nature of it, depending on what it is, how powerful it is, the nature, and what is the type of influence, and sometimes it's easy and sometimes it takes time, but they're all individualized depending on the situation.
Mm-hmm. So just so our listeners have an idea, what would be the shortest time and what's the longest time you've needed for stuff like this? Just so people have a general idea.
The shortest time sometimes is like one visit.
Okay.
The longest time, at a friend of mine's house, is from the 1600s, actually the 1700s, but the property even further, there was another house there. And, and I try to pray. It's the demonic stuff I got out of there, but there's still other activity going on. And once in a while it'll come back again, and I have to go back and deal with it. And that's going on a few years. But at least it's not something that's a threat anymore. Mm-hmm. But it's still an ongoing process. So it can go anywhere from one try to a couple of years, depending on the nature of what's going on. And, we don't know, sometimes it's a guessing game, as to what is the definite problem. And yes, trial and error,
That is true. That is definitely true. And especially if you don't know what was on the land prior to that gentleman's house.
Right.
And, of course, we live in New England. And, of course, I'm assuming your friend's house is probably somewhere in Rhode Island or along the New England seacoast.
Well, New York, it's in Rhode Island. And, as you know, most of Rhode Island's all Native American land.
Right. It's Native American. It was hit by the Vikings. They didn't have permanent settlements in New England. That's why we never talk about, well, I talk about them all the time, but why they don't teach it in school is because it wasn't permanent. They teach it. Well, Christopher Columbus was the first person here. Great.
Yeah.
And no, wrong.
Yeah.
The Vikings were here. The Portuguese were here. There were other people here. They were fighting all along our seacoast. Natives lost lives. Vikings lost lives. English lost lives because of disease and war. I mean, it was not an easy time in 1700 New England. And Rhode Island was the center of King Philip's War. Well, not the epic center, but close enough to the epic center of King Philip's War.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And then we had our other little stuff here, the Door Rebellion and stuff like that, too. So,
right.
But, definitely King Philip's War did touch Rhode Island. Absolutely.
Yeah, no, Rhode Island and southeastern Massachusetts were not the place to live during King Philip's War. It was bad. And you don't know what type of blood has spilled on your friend's land, what was there. And there's been a house there since the 1600s, not the house that's there now. The other one, 1700s. A lot of people have lived and died in that house.
Now it's from the 1700s.
Yeah. But a lot of people in that house have lived and died there, too.
Right.
So when they've lived in, so you don't even know what they were doing in that house in the 1700s, what they were playing with, what they were doing. I mean, that's what makes old houses so intriguing to investigate and work on.
Right.
So it makes it real interesting. And and Father, is there anything else you'd like to let our listeners know? I mean, we're going to go a little over the hour for sure. That's all right. We've done this multiple times this way. So we just want to make sure that our listeners all across the United States, the world, and the big pond going to England, that big body pond. Is there anything else you'd like to let our listeners know that they can either look for to help themselves? Because sometimes helping yourself is sometimes the best solutions.
Oh, yeah. I mean, if you think that you have something going bump in the night, check it out. And first of all, don't always assume something is paranormal or demonic. It's important to try to debunk. The first thing that should be done is trying to debunk it by recreating it and seeing, is there a natural explanation? Let me try everything I can to see if I can find an explanation. And only then, if you can't, then you start looking into paranormal. But today, people just seem to jump right into that before anything else,
Right. I agree.
Yeah, I agree with you totally. We had a house where it wasn't a house, it was a trailer. Nicest young lady you ever want to meet. She was in her probably late 70s, early 80s. Very nice lady. Very religious, very everything. She was hearing things on her floor. She thought there was something, because she had the ashes of her husband in there with her, and she started having some paranormal stuff, and she would hear the floor shake and move and all that other stuff. So we went outside to look around, and what did we find? They were either rabbit holes or gopher holes. Whoops. I know what's causing that underneath your metal house that you live under. Whatever's getting under there at night is hopping around, and it's just hitting his head on the floor.
Right.
Poor rabbit, poor squirrel, raccoon, whatever. It was just hitting its head.
That's what's going bump in the night.
Right. Well, there was paranormal too, but one of my team members put some, what are those things called under there? Mothballs? Guess what? There were no more bumps on the floor.
There you go. A great story.
Yeah, so I mean, check that out first. Then if you're not sure, I'd suggest calling a paranormal team in before calling Father Bailey saying, I have a demon in the house.
Yeah. And we work good, with and make sure that the paranormal team is a good one.
Right.
Is a seasoned one. Because there are some that go on and, they don't really have enough experience and information. Right. And, they just want to go in there and hope everything is paranormal. A good paranormal investigator hopes there is nothing paranormal in the place.
Correct
on that one.
Correct.
Yeah, and then if that's not the case, then I'd reach out to Father Bailey. Email him the situation that you have, and he'll get back to you with some suggestions, maybe contacting another team first that that you can trust to do the work, especially if it's not close. And then if all else fails, then Father Bailey or somebody of his stature will, he'll see what he can do to get some help for you.
Mm-hmm.
And so, we got a couple minutes left. Without giving it away, because we would never ask you to give anything away, what was one of the worst cases you ever had to deal with?
I think one of the worst cases, and it's because it was personal. It had to do with, with somebody that I knew. And it was... we got called in Massachusetts to a convenience store, and we did an investigation, and it ended up being, definitely something demonic. One of our tech guys got bitten in the arm, and you could see that. Another one, who was an empath, who had the gifts of empathy, was getting really sick. I had to pray over them. But anyways, we were able to have good results in the convenience store. However, the entity an entity there followed my friend home and started to wreak havoc in the house and with the family. So it was part A and part B, and that was scary because. Well, and actually, that was one of the cases that the Haunted actually took and did a documentary on it. So they took some of our footage actually for the documentary. So it's called The Haunted. It used to be on Animal Planet. The title of that one, you can find it on YouTube, is called The Demonic Seduction. It's pretty wild.
Yeah, wow. It sounds wild.
Yeah, no, that does sound
pretty
wild. I think I remember seeing that when it was on, because I used to watch The Haunted when it was on.
Yeah, because the house was in Massachusetts. It was in, not Rehoboth, oh my gosh, what's right next to Rehoboth?
Fall River? Lakeville? No. Freetown?
Near Dighton, Rehoboth. Oh gosh, my mind, senior. Anyways, but it was right over there, so it wasn't that far from Rhode Island.
No, it's actually in the Bridgewater Triangle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I actually had that happen to a team.
Taunton.
Taunton.
That's where it was.
Okay, Taunton. I actually had. Did you get that, Bob? Taunton. I actually had that happen to a team member once before in a house, where we had spent all summer finally getting rid of the entity off of the team member. So yes, that has happened. It's happened more than once too. So it's like, ooh. But yeah, no. So I understand what you're saying. I actually had that happen to a team member once before, doing a negative entity case.
Right.
So it can happen. That's why it's important to call in teams that know what they're doing. Because you don't want to put your family's already at risk, and now you're just adding to the risk.
Correct.
So.
Right. Yep.
It makes it interesting. Well, Father Bailey, we've come to the end of a great show. Don't hang up yet, though, please. All right? I just want to talk to you a few minutes after the show. Bob, thank you. You can stay on too, Bob, if you'd like, because this is something you'd be interested in. So I want to thank everybody who's tuned in tonight, who will be tuning in from across the United States, California, Canada, Mexico, Saudi Arabia, England, across that great ocean, wherever you tune in from. We have listeners from all over the world. So I want to thank everybody for tuning in tonight. Good night, Bob. Say good.
Good night, Tom. Good night, Father.
And good night, Father, to you too. And we'll be seeing everybody soon. I'm heading back to the crypt. Good night, everybody.